we got news that they were reworking some of the X-Men characters. A lot of us are really excited about that. However, now that we're seeing it, it really doesn't seem to be as impactful as one would think. So we're really trying to ask the question, why? Well, I think I know the answer. It has to do with these two pictures here. Let me explain. When we look at X-23, we notice that she won the Rework Award. She's meant to be a good character once again. In the past, she was already devastating with her evades, her stealth. If you got into a one-on-one with her, you were probably going to lose. Now she can apply trauma in addition to all her other abilities, right? She's got ability blocks, she's going to evade, she's going to be in stealth, she's going to be hard to remove from the board. So, looks like she's meant to be a good character. The difficulty is we're not really seeing that with the other characters that got the reworks. For example, when it comes to Kitty Pryde and Colossus, a lot of their abilities play off of each other, so you almost need to use them together as a duo, which is kind of cool, right? For theory crafting purposes. However, even though they have more sustain and damage, they don't really seem to have the stats that will impact the game. Individuals are saying that they can't take on any of the meta teams. They can't even take on many of the B tier teams. So why would we need them? In like manner, when it comes to Phoenix and Jubilee, both legendary characters, stuff still kind of feels lacking. Phoenix, she's a controller. She has more controlling effects, and it looks like we'll be able to manipulate those things a little bit more. We'll be able to put the debuffs where we want them a little bit more, and that's pretty cool. Jubilee, though, it looks like most of her abilities are still tied to the astonishing X-Men. That's kind of disappointing, right? That's a little bit disappointing. Some of her abilities were freed up, but if we really don't have the ability to move her around, why was this done? It looks like a lot of work got done, but why? Scopely is a business after all. So since they put time, effort, and energy into getting these characters reworked, there must be a reason. If they're not going to be impactful in the game modes that we know and love, then there must be another reason, another plan for why these characters were put in place. And I think it has a lot to do with these clues that Scopely's been giving us over the past few months. This is a screen that most of us saw in our legacy reel. This one's from Boylon. But hey, it says there's a new challenge. Please check the video out if you haven't already. And we see the door, the X logo on the door behind the words. Many of us remember the splash screen that came out when the Extreme X-Men were being introduced. And what do we have in the back there? We have a door with the X logo. So are these two things related? It appears so. Now, we were also told that, again, we were missing the main point. So a lot of people keyed in on the apparatus up here at the top. Perhaps this is the danger room. And maybe the danger room is the vector that's being used to introduce Battleworld. Now, I know the in-game story for why the Battleworld exists is different than having to do with Danger Room and the X-Men. But there are some big changes happening over at Marvel, really wanting to ramp up the X-Men. And so perhaps those changes have now bled over into Marvel Strike Force. The Danger Room is how the X-Men team works together, no matter what combination of that team you have. And I think that might be part of the backdrop of what's happening. I think it is significant that they showed us that one of the enemies is Magneto. Why didn't they show us other villains? Why did they show us the mutant villain, Magneto? I think that's significant. What is significant is perhaps some of the rewards that we're going to get in this game mode. Notice we can get moments, orbs. Once again, Strike Time, they told us about moments, and it looks like they're tied to this game mode. I'm really curious about this UI element over here. Do these avatars represent just people from your alliance and they participated and got points toward the milestone? Or by using specific characters, do we get bonus points that can help us get to the milestone faster and get us extra points on the leaderboard? We have this big bar at the bottom that we have to fill up. So maybe to get more points, we need to use as many different characters as we can. And again, maybe there's certain characters that give you extra points. When the blog post about Battleworld came out, it said that we'll be sieging the Battleworld over a period of 6 days. However, the characters that you use can only be used once a day, so your alliance has to coordinate to get the most points, to put the most damage on the boss. Is this kind of like a world boss situation? I guess of that I'm not sure of. However, I know that as a community, we love to theory craft. So to just have one team that should stomp on everything, I don't think that's going to work. I think you're going to need multiple teams to score the highest. What do you guys think that these various items here mean? Again, this is just for demonstration. They didn't say that this is how it's actually going to look, but is this like an idle process here that you kind of just send people out and maybe they come back and give us some loot of some sort? Or maybe it gives us something to do while we're waiting for the next zone to unlock. Perhaps here, do we just have our progress, our pass fail, if we get through all 6 areas? What are your thoughts on that? What do you think this is about? And at the end here, it looks like we get to loot the moment tower. So is this how we collect moments? Are these orbs of some sort? Are these points of some sort? Again, I'm really curious as to how the moment system is going to work. I think Mobile Gamer alluded to the fact that in other Scopely games, moments are like a collection of characters. You put those characters together somehow and you get a boost. You get some type of a bonus. What do you guys think will be the application of Marvel Strike Force? So still though, we have to ask ourselves the question, like, why? What does this have to do with the reworks to the X-Men? Well, what if there's a path that you get extra points for using your X-Men? Well, obviously we just say, well, good, I'm just going to blast it with my Extreme X-Men team. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. However, what if you can get more points if you use multiple teams? Remember, the blog post said that you can only use those characters once a day. So you can't keep hitting them with the Extreme X-Men. But maybe if you use more X-Men, you can get more points. And so maybe the reworks are here to help bolster some of these teams, to really help you to mix and match. Maybe you break up your Extreme X-Men into 2 or 3 different teams, and you can make multiple attacks to get more and more points. The reason why I'm thinking along these lines is because there's a leaderboard. So many of us haven't powered up the entirety of our roster, but some people have big rosters all the way across. So maybe they'll include people from X-Force, X-Factor. That will ensure that the big dog players still get the most points, but you and I can still do damage and get the basic rewards with our alliance. So you might be saying, yeah, that seems really convoluted. Here's the thing. As we mentioned, there's some big things going on at Marvel in general, and it has to do with our second picture here. One detail to notice is Professor X here in the front. It's the traditional Professor X that many of us know and love. We know that Marvel Strike Force wanted to use this version of Professor X, but they were not allowed to because Marvel said no. Marvel said you have to use the current version of Professor X. In this issue of the Uncanny X-Men, the 700th issue, will change what the current version of Professor X is. Again, we recall that Benny Westside, as an envoy, reported, hey, this is Professor X in the background of the splash screen, and it 100% is Professor X. So if you haven't been keeping up with Marvel Comics, over the past few years, the story of the X-Men have been told from the concept of Krakoa. And in that storyline, here's Professor X. This is what he looks like. He's walking around. He has Cerebro on his head. This is who he is. So if you want to use Professor X, you had to use the current version, right? Marvel made sure of that. We know that Marvel Strike Force wants to use the traditional version. So they didn't want to do that. So they were barred from using the character. But things are going to change. If you've been following that storyline, it's getting ready to come to a head, and it's going to reset the X-Men storyline. So the traditional version of Professor X, fully expect him to come back, right? He's on the cover. He's on the cover of that comic, and Marvel's really pushing the X-Men, right? We have Wolverine and Deadpool. We have X-Men 97 coming out on Disney Plus. There's going to be, again, a reset, a resurgence of the X-Men and Marvel Comics. And I know that some of those things are going to bleed over into the game, right? Some of the things we talked about earlier, maybe they're going to happen. You know, maybe they won't. I'm not an envoy. I'm just guessing, trying to put the pieces together. But I'm curious to know what you think. Which X-Men characters you think will be coming into the game? How will the changes to the X-Men impact the game from here on out? I want to know what you think. Peace.